Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. It is Monday, new week, and hopefully a brighter week than last week. Last week's theme was dissonance, looking at harmonic instability and in some cases the most extreme cases of sonic or harmonic instability. It was a rough week for me. I'm not a big fan of dissonance, so I figure I need a week to recuperate. We're going to look at consonants this week, and typically we do listen to consonant harmony throughout this channel, but I'm hoping that this week gives me some just songs that are gorgeous. That doesn't mean bright and happy. We can certainly have gorgeous and beautiful darkness or sorrow or something like that. But at the end of the day, I think that most of the songs this week should be able to be described as beautiful. And Radiohead is definitely a group that I think falls within that fairly often. We're going to be looking at Let Down. Now, if you're a Radiohead fan, you're watching this, and you're like, dude, I can't wait to get into this. We have another Radiohead reaction today. It just happened to line up this way. We're going to check out Life in a Glass House after this one. So, you got two Radiohead reactions today. Radiohead fans are eating well. Let's dive into Let It Down and see what Radiohead is bringing to the table today. I think I said Let It Down, but it's just Let Down. The spaciousness of the vocals is interesting. It's pushed so far out to the sides that it really draws attention to itself. But there's nothing really anything centered to signify that. The guitars are out to the sides too. The tambourine off to the side. It creates a song that feels kind of empty in the middle. Oh, we do have one guitar in the center. It's very bright and twinkly though. The guitars are all emphasizing notes at different times. And it has your attention bouncing around. We have a guitar here that's playing the same thing the vocals are. Ooh. It almost feels like, well, it almost felt like a canon, but then this guitar started going off in its own world and turned into counterpoint. What you doing over there, guy? Interesting that the electronic bit right there in the previous section, a little unstable. It created some tension for this to feel more warm and inviting. All right, that was interesting insight. I don't think. All right, that's Life in a Glass House. I'm going to check that out next video. I don't think that the electronic bit there is actually dissonant within itself. I think there is a little bit of clashing between the mid-range stuff and the higher pitch stuff over here. Although I think some of that's just going to be on the production side, as this stuff over here is just kind of shrill, and it's tough to really get a clarity on the specific pitches because I think it's the length between how often there's oscillation in the sound waves. I believe it's just so thin, and it becomes difficult to hear smaller changes in pitch. And we are looking at some half-step stuff going on in there too. And I think that's where some of that intonation stuff was coming from. But also, I wonder about the electronic bit versus the guitar, because that's where I felt the most amount of friction. And without the guitar there at the end, it felt entirely consonant, which can create its own little narrative component by itself there. We have one idea that works by itself, another idea that works by itself. When they're separate, these ideas are beautiful, but when you combine them, that's where things get kind of messy. And this could be a metaphor for all sorts of things. Sometimes you just don't want to mix things. Oil, we use that in applications. It's the perfect thing we need in those applications. Water's great. You mix them together though, and well, it's not always perfect. It doesn't work in either the original two scenarios, and they don't even like blending with each other too well because their molecules separate. So that's I guess that's another metaphor though. But there's the idea there of things that work by themselves but not necessarily in combination, and that's kind of what I'm getting out of that. It's a cool musical idea to represent, and I'm curious if that's going to be present in the lyrics at all. This is a fairly monolithic song though. There is two main sections to it. I think we have a verse and a chorus, and we did have a bridge which brought some variety to the table, but for the most part the atmosphere and all of this is very similar. The roles and the ways that the instruments approach those roles between the different sections is fairly similar. We have a lot of this song that feels very light, very floaty, a lack of gravity, suspension, and twinkly. I think that is a very important word for this track, because whether it is the synthesizers just sort of bouncing around on these notes, or any of the guitars, kind of avoiding the low end as far as pitch entirely, focusing on mid to high pitch notes, and then also having specific notes that are heavily emphasized where the rest of the riff isn't, and then having the three guitars emphasize different parts of the phrase in order to create this bouncing around where you hear a twinkle over here and then a sparkle over there, and then your attention gets pulled over here, and it's never the same thing. It's not like every other beat, it just bounces around. You get one and then another flash and then two back to back, then a flash here and a faster one coming over there, and then you wait a little bit, we got a back to back over here. It's sort of like a musical representation of, well, I mean, you look up at the night sky, you see stars twinkling. There really isn't much of a pattern to that. But also, I mean, you can look at like paparazzi or the press at like a red carpet event and all of the flashes going off. There's no rhyme or reason to it. You could create some sort of rhythmic flow to it, build a drum part that would work with all of the flashing. But that's what it ends up being. There is no rhythm to it. You can ascribe one, but it feels random because it is. Now, this is more of a feeling of random, though it isn't. There is a pattern to it, but it doesn't follow like a very simple preset idea, once every 2 beats or once every 4 beats. And the emphasized note itself tends to bring your attention in that direction. And I think a lot of this is supported by the lack of a clear front and center thing to listen to. In a lot of music, the lead melody gets center channel, at least modern music. Center channel gets the lead melody. That's where your vocals typically sit. If it's an instrumental, that's where your lead instrument is going to sit. If it's a rock or a metal track and there's a guitar solo, the guitars might have been panned originally, but here in the solo, the instrument is center. There's just something about bringing our attention to in front of us rather than to the sides of us that feels direct, and it feels like that's where the emphasis should be. And there's probably some psychology to this as well, because, you know, in a play, very rarely are you going to have key important people sitting off to the sides. Your monologue's going to be closer to the center of the stage. You know, the things on the sides, on the periphery, it might be somebody sneaking around. You can catch them and kind of see what they're doing, but they're not the focus of the scene. This idea of putting the focus directly in front of the audience, I don't know why we do it, but we do, and it works. And that's what makes this really interesting. We do have vocals here, hard panned out to the side. I don't think there's any overlap towards the center at all. They feel 90 degrees on either side of me. As usual, when it comes to stuff like this, it's quite possible that listening to monitors at a nice, well, like 40 degrees in front of me, or speakers 40 degrees in front of me, would produce a very different effect than headphones or ear pods that's going to create this hard 90 degree placement as the sound is just going straight into my ears. So there's always going to be that. Regardless, though, there is still this heavy emphasis or de-emphasis of the center channel. And I think that, you know, at the beginning I was questioning, why are we doing this? There really isn't anything in the center to draw our attention to. There's nothing there. We have the cymbal off on the side, toms, as usual, they're kind of covering, the whole drum kit covers the entire spectrum. We do have a bass kick and a bass guitar center, and eventually I did hear an acoustic guitar, maybe a clean electric center as well. This is what's helping create this bouncing, starry, flashy sound thing going on. But I think by de-emphasizing the center, it re-emphasizes the entirety of the song. It's what makes the bouncing around so apparent. You're not really focusing on anything specifically, so when you get these emphasized hits, they kind of draw your attention to it. Like someone yelling out of sight of your vision. The first thing you do is kind of look in that direction. What's going on? You need to put that in front of your eyes. That's sort of what the bouncing around does here. I think that if there was a lead instrument clearly placed in the spotlight, in the center, right in front of the audience, I don't think that the bouncing or the twinkling would be quite as prominent, as clearly felt and heard and understood. And I do think that it is the core part of the song, and in a sense, despite not putting anything in the spotlight, those emphasized beats, the twinkling element, is put in the spotlight. Now, aside from that, though, everything else is kind of de-emphasized. And I think a lot of that comes down to, one, yes, the production of it. There really isn't a focus on anything in this song, but also compositionally, this falls along with a lot of what I've seen in Radiohead over the years. They do have more complex tracks, but most of what I've heard, they write on the more simpler side. Atmosphere over, I was going to say chops, but I think that would imply that they don't have skills. But the performance of skills, the performance of musicianship, everything they write is in service to the song, not in service to the musicians. Do I think that they could get on stage and start shredding and drumming intense things? Absolutely. They've been a band for a long time. They are well versed within their instruments, but they don't. That's not the kind of music they want to make. The art is more important than the ego. That's how I've always understood Radiohead. And so a track like this sort of falls in line with that. Bass work, drum work, very straightforward, primarily keeps a beat. We have some fills, some light ornamentation over the course of this track, but nothing to really take the spotlight away from the bouncing and glittering guitars, the sparkle of it all. Same goes with the bass. We actually have some pedal tone sections throughout some of this. We occasionally move to something that allows the bass to present forward momentum, a little walking bass line at the end of a phrase to help end the idea, put a punctuation at the end of the sentence, and start a new paragraph or start a new section. We got a tambourine off on the side. What is that, every other beat? I think that was very straightforward, keeping the pulse, nothing fancy. And the vocals off to the side, a bit de-emphasized and not really energetic. There's almost a lack of energy in the way that they're sung. Kind of, just something that's happening, bit of airiness to it, never really getting too high up in pitch. We're not looking at any sort of projection or the appearance of, not necessarily force, but energy. It is at least maybe not the fact that it takes a little amount of energy to produce these vocals, but it is the appearance of a low energy vocal performance. We have some harmonies on them, and sometimes they are layered up with a center guitar that plays the same melody that they're singing. Well, that's it. Very light, not projected, de-emphasized in the mix. It is almost a part of the atmosphere, a part of the wall of all of this. The only thing that really stands out to me is when the synthesizers come in, and I think that was more about the contrast than anything else. They're not necessarily loud in the mix, but we just haven't heard anything like that. We've never heard anything electronic. Sort of, catches my attention. That's different. That's new. What's going on there? I can lock in on that sound, but it's not that it's really dominating the mix at all. And so what is all of this saying then? If it's a song that's kind of hyper-focused on one sound, occasionally changing some of the things that are happening, but for the most part, functional rhythm section, twinkling guitar work, de-emphasized vocals, that's pretty much the entirety of this track. To me, it's just pretty. It's warm. It's inviting. There's something about all of this that feels comfortable, but not in like a joyous, rambunctious, uplifting vibe. It's just comfort, like laying on your back in a hilly area, just taking in your environment. Maybe it is nighttime. Maybe the stars are twinkling and you're just observing them, not even thinking about the vastness of space. It's not a scope thing. It's just comfort. It's just positive. It's being in the moment and having that be enough. That's what this song basically says to me. There's beauty in the now. Just be here now. I am curious what the lyrics are going to say, though. It's quite possible this is a case where we have lyrical dissonance, where the lyrics are exploring a different vibe or emotion or atmosphere than the music, and that the contrast between the two is saying something within itself. Because the song is called Let Down, which, I mean, being let down or letting someone down is not great. But maybe they're taking a positive turn on that? I don't know. Let's find out. Dive into some lyrics for Let Down. We do have a contrast here. This song is very pessimistic, lyrically at least. Musically, I don't feel that. This is a very vibrant and bright song that feels hopeful and optimistic and just positive in the now, a comfort. But maybe that comfort is exactly what it is critiquing. The chorus says, it's disappointing being let down and just hanging around, crushed like a bug in the ground. Verse 2 expands on this, says the shell smashed, juices flowing, wings are twitching, legs are going. Don't get sentimental, it'll always end up drivel. So he expands on the idea of a bug crushed in the ground and shows how it's kind of still alive. The wings are twitching, the legs are going. This could just be muscle spasms, but it's still not a place I think most people would want to trade places with. He says, but don't get sentimental for it. Don't get sentimental for the loss of life. It's just a bug after all. Then says, one day I'm going to grow wings, a chemical reaction, hysterical and useless. Yeah, a human with wings would be both comedic and probably useless. I don't know how the physics of bugs and birds work, but you know, depending on what kind of wings a human grows, they might not actually be able to lift their weight in the end. But I wonder if it's also saying on the other side of things that even having wings, it won't change anything. The ability to fly doesn't remove him from the world around him. Verse 1, though, I think really gives us some insight into what this song is trying to look at. And I think it's just the general mundanity of life. It says transport, motorways, tram lines, starting and stopping, taking off and landing, the emptiest of feelings, disappointed people clinging on to bottles. It's so disappointing being let down and hanging around. This idea that, at least from the narrator's perspective, whether that is from the lyricist or just from this person, that life is just empty, devoid of meaning. Things just happen. There's an industrialization of everything. Comparing possibly all parts of life to machines operating on timetables, being efficient, starting when they need to, stopping when they need to, getting people where they need to go. Transport. There's no emotionality to it. There's no sentimentality to it. It's just something that happens. The motorways, the trams, cars, buses, they just operate. That's the entirety of this song. To feel let down by how mundane and emotionally empty day-to-day life can be. It's very interesting that the music tells me a different story, but maybe that comfort in the music is what he's talking about. Most people tend to live comfortable lives, not being challenging, just kind of being there. I wonder if the narrator feels that about their own life. Talks about disappointed people clinging onto bottles, which reminds me of people who might visit a pub or a bar daily, a couple of times a week, with some friends maybe, by themselves maybe, just not happy with things and trying to find happiness at the bottom of a bottle. Like clockwork, they won't find that happiness tonight. They'll try again tomorrow. Hopping on the public transport to get them between the pub and home and work once again. The mundanity of life. That's what this song is focusing on. Huh. Those are my thoughts, at least. I wanted to expand that into the music more, but I don't think I have anything else to say on this, so I'm going to turn the mic over to y'all. Let me know, did you enjoy this? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Do you have your own take, perspective, or opinion on this? Let me know. Put all of that down into the comments section along with anything else you'd like to add. Above that in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.